The world of void did not simply shake, it screamed. The sound was not one of air or atmosphere, for neither existed here. It was the sound of laws breaking, the agonizing shriek of the fundamental pillars of reality, snapping under the weight of a conflict that should never have occurred. Above the floating debris of the Tournament of Power arena, the infinite darkness was torn asunder by two conflicting lights. One was a pristine, terrifyingly perfect halo of pale blue, the absolute order of the Grand Priest. The other was a roaring, chaotic storm of deep amber and crimson, the primordial breath of Zalama, the dragon god. The Grand Priest hovered, his expression unchanged, his eyes cold and void of malice, yet filled with a purpose that was far more terrifying: erasure. His hand was extended, a lance of divine energy piercing through the golden scales of the colossal, serpentine deity before him. Zalama roared, a sound that resonated in the souls of every mortal and god across the 12 universes. Golden ichor, hot as the core of a hypergiant star, spilled into the void, burning holes through the fabric of space itself. The creator of the Super Dragon Balls, the being who had dreamed galaxies into existence, was falling. The balance of neutrality had been shattered, and in this dying moment, the Dragon God did not look to the angels for mercy. He looked down, through the smoke in the ruin, toward a lone, battered Saiyan, who had just pushed his own limits to touch the domain of the gods. Zalama saw the fire in Son Goku's eyes, not the cold perfection of the angels, but a burning, desperate will to protect. And in that split second, before the Grand Priest could deliver the final stroke of erasure, the Dragon God made a choice that would rewrite the history of existence. The timeline is fracturing, and a new legend is being written in the blood of gods. Before we witness the birth of the Dragon Guardian, ensure your connection to this archive is secure. Subscribe to the narrative, so the history of this new multiverse does not fade into the silence of the void. The silence of the world of void was a lie. It was a canvas painted over with a terrifying stillness, a facade that shattered the moment the Grand Priest moved his hand. There was no wind to carry the sound, yet a thunderclap of displacement rolled through the bones of every spectator in the stands. It was the sound of absolute authority asserting itself against an ancient, chaotic will. Zalama, the great dragon god, floated amidst the ruin of the arena, his colossal serpentine form reduced to a flickering shadow of its former majesty. His golden scales, which had once shone with the luster of a billion suns, were dull and cracked, leaking a viscous, luminous ichor that hissed as it touched the nothingness below. He was not merely dying, he was being unmade. The Grand Priest hovered above him, a speck of blue perfection against the vast darkness, his halo revolving with a calm, rhythmic indifference. To the angel, this was not a battle, it was a correction, a pruning of a branch that had grown too wild, too unpredictable for the symmetrical garden the Omni King desired. The era of unbridled wishes is over, Zalama. The Grand Priest spoke, his voice soft, yet echoing with the weight of inevitability. Neutrality is the pillar of the multiverse. Your existence, which empowers mortals to rewrite the fabric of reality without consequence, is a flaw. It ends now. Zalama did not speak, for his voice was the rumble of galaxies colliding, and he had no breath left for words. But his eyes, burning orbs of vertical, reptilian gold, narrowed. He felt the cold inevitability of the angel's decree. The dragon god understood something the angels, in their detached perfection, could never grasp. Neutrality was stagnation. Life was not order. Life was the desperate, clawing struggle to become more than what one was created to be. He looked past the halo, past the descending lance of erasure, and cast his gaze toward the shattered remnants of the fighting stage. There, amidst the rubble, knelt Son Goku. The Saiyan was broken. His gi was torn to shreds, his body bruised and battered from the relentless gauntlet of the Tournament of Power. His breathing was ragged. His ultra instinct faded into the dark recesses of his exhaustion. He was mortal. He was finite. He was weak. Yet, in the Dragon God's dying vision, Goku shone brighter than any star in the cosmos. Zalama saw the history etched into the Saiyan's soul, the refusal to accept limits, the audacity to challenge gods, the sheer, stubborn will to protect. This mortal did not seek power to rule. He sought it to break walls. He was the perfect vessel for the chaos of creation. The Grand Priest's finger twitched. A lance of pure, white erasure shot downward, silent and absolute. It struck Zalama's chest, piercing the divine heart. The shockwave flattened the floating debris for miles. The gods of destruction in the stands stood up in unison, their faces masks of paralyzed horror. They were witnessing the execution of a legend. But as the light of erasure consumed Zalama's physical form, the dragon god roared one final, defiant decree. He did not fight the erasure of his body. Instead, he collapsed his spirit, his knowledge, and his divine authority into a single point. The massive body of the dragon dissolved into golden dust, but from the center of the destruction, a sphere of concentrated amber light shot out. It was the Dragon Core, the seed of all wishes, the heart of the Super Dragon Balls. It moved with a speed that defied time, screaming across the void like a falling star. The Grand Priest's eyes widened, a rare flicker of surprise. He raised a hand to intercept it, constructing a barrier of angelic law. Halt! The command was absolute. Reality obeyed the Grand Priest, but the Dragon Core was not reality, it was the power to change reality. The amber light smashed through the angelic barrier as if it were glass, fueled by Zalama's final, desperate wish. It curved, unpredictable, and wild, seeking the one heat signature that burned with the same defiant fire. Goku looked up, his vision blurry. He saw the golden comet rushing toward him. He tried to move, to dodge, but his limbs were heavy as lead. He felt a sudden, crushing pressure, a gravity that pinned his very soul to the floor. Goku. Vegeta's voice rang out from the sidelines, panic edging into his tone. There was no time to answer. The Dragon Core struck Son Goku squarely in the chest. It did not impact him like a punch. It splashed into him like molten lead poured into water. The sound that tore from Goku's throat was not a scream of battle. It was a primal, ragged shriek of absolute violation. His back arched violently, his body lifting off the ground as if suspended on a hook. The amber light didn't sit on his skin. It burrowed inside, tearing through muscle, fusing with bone, and burning through the pathways of his ki network. To the onlookers, it looked as though Goku was burning alive. Golden cracks formed on his skin, glowing with such intensity that they blinded the weaker mortals. His hair flickered black, then gold, then red, then blue, cycling through every form he had ever known, unable to contain the ocean of power flooding into his small, mortal cup. The Saiyan biology, built for adaptation, went into immediate, catastrophic shock. It tried to reject the foreign deity, but the Dragon Core was relentless. It was not asking for permission. It was carving out a home. The Grand Priest lowered his hand, his expression hardening into cold resolve. The anomaly had not been erased. It had merely changed containers. A foolish gamble, Zalama, he whispered to the dust. To burden a mortal with the soul of a concept. You have only ensured his destruction. The Grand Priest began to descend, his aura flaring up, ready to extinguish the vessel before the transformation could complete. But as he moved, the void itself began to tremble, not with fear, but with a deep, resonant hum. The Grand Priest did not run. He flowed. He moved through the air like ink, dropping into water, closing the distance to the convulsing Saiyan with a terrifying lack of urgency. He raised a single finger, the tip glowing with a violet light that was far darker, far more final than the energy of any god of destruction. This was not Hakai, which destroyed matter. This was the authority of the void, a command for existence to simply cease. Rest now, Son Goku, the Grand Priest said, his voice devoid of pity. You have reached too far. The beam fired. It was a silent streak of negation, aimed directly at the glowing fracture in Goku's chest where the core was burrowing. Beerus gripped the edge of the spectator railing, his knuckles turning white, his teeth bared in a snarl of impotence. You fool, he hissed, though whether he was speaking to Goku, the Grand Priest, or the dying memory of Zalama, even he did not know. You can't mix a mortal soul with an eternal concept. It will tear the universe apart. The beam was inches from Goku's heart when the impossible happened. The 7 Super Dragon Balls, which had been floating inertly around the arena as the ultimate prize of the tournament, suddenly awoke. They did not glow with the summoning light of Shenron. They pulsed with a deep, resonant heartbeat that matched the rhythm of Goku's screaming soul. With a sound like tectonic plates grinding together, the planet-sized orbs moved. They warped space, shrinking and accelerating, rushing toward the center of the stage with a protective desperation. They slammed into position around Goku, forming a perfect, impenetrable sphere of orange crystal, just as the Grand Priest's erasure beam made contact. The impact did not result in an explosion. It resulted in a distortion. The violet light of erasure washed over the surface of the 4-star ball, hissing and crackling, but it could not penetrate. The Super Dragon Balls were not merely objects. They were the hardened fragments of Zalama's will, and they recognized their master's heart beating within the Saiyan. They were shielding him. Inside the amber darkness of that sphere, Goku was no longer on the tournament stage. He was drowning in a golden ocean. Every nerve ending in his body felt as though it were being dipped in molten lead. The pain was absolute, eclipsing the agony of the Kaioken or the strain of Ultra Instinct. But it wasn't just physical. His mind was being assaulted by memories that were not his own, the birth of stars, the silence before the Big Bang, the feeling of shaping nebulae like clay. He felt the crushing weight of 1 billion wishes, the greed of tyrants, the hope of dying civilizations. the desperate prayers of the weak. I can't. Goku's thought was a fragile leaf in a hurricane? It's too heavy. The dragon core pushed deeper, demanding space, demanding submission. It sought to overwrite the mortal ego, to erase Son Goku, and replace him with a new Zalama. It was a parasitic divinity, ancient and overwhelming. But deep within that golden storm, a spark of stubborn, simple brilliance ignited. It was the same spark that had refused to stay down against Vegeta, that had defied Frieza, that had pushed back against Jiren. It was the Saiyan instinct to adapt, to survive. I am not a god. Goku's hand, stripped of skin and glowing with raw energy, clenched into a fist in the liquid gold. And I am not a dragon. He forced his eyes open in the darkness. The irises were no longer silver. They were bleeding into a vertical, predatory slit. He grabbed the torrent of power that was trying to drown him and, instead of fighting it, he bit into it. He devoured the pressure. He treated the infinite weight of the dragon god not as a burden, but as fuel. Son Goku. Outside, the Super Dragon Balls began to vibrate. Cracks of golden light appeared in the gaps between them, shining with such intensity that the spectators had to shield their eyes. The Grand Priest stopped his assault, floating back a few meters, his brows furrowing slightly. The air in the world of void grew heavy, viscerally, physically heavy. It felt as though gravity had increased 100-fold. The 7 orbs suddenly scattered, shooting outward to the edges of the void as if repelled by a massive magnetic force. Revealed in the center was no longer the battered fighter who had collapsed moments ago. Goku stood upright. The tatters of his blue undershirt had burned away, leaving his chest exposed. Along his shoulders and down his arms, the skin had taken on a faint, iridescent sheen, shimmering like scales under the strange light. His hair remained in the shape of his base form, but it was no longer black. It was a deep, absorbing amber, flowing with the slow viscosity of liquid gold. But it was his eyes that froze the blood of the gods of destruction. They were gold, vertical pupils set in pools of magma, holding a gaze that felt ancient. There was no rage in them, nor the tranquility of ultra instinct. There was only authority. This sensation, Whis murmured, his staff glowing as he analyzed the energy signature. It is not ki as we know it. It is not a fighting power. It is the breath of creation itself. The Grand Priest narrowed his eyes. The vessel has stabilized. A regrettable anomaly. He raised his hand again, preparing a technique that would collapse the space around Goku into a singularity. Perish. Goku did not take a fighting stance. He did not power up. He simply looked at the collapsing space rushing toward him, and he spoke. His voice was layered, the rough tenor of the Saiyan harmonizing with a deep, subterranean growl that shook the floor. Stop. It was not a plea. It was a wish. And reality obeyed. The collapsing singularity didn't just halt, it unraveled. The energy dissipated into harmless sparks, rewriting the law of physics that the Grand Priest had just enforced. The angel's eyes widened. He looked at his own hand, then back at the Saiyan. Goku took a step forward. The ground didn't crack. It rippled like water beneath his boot. He looked at his hands, clenching and unclenching them, feeling the terrifying density of the power flowing through his veins. He looked up at the Grand Priest, and for the first time in the history of the multiverse, an angel looked down at a mortal and felt uncertain. You want to erase me? Goku said, the golden aura around him flaring up, forming the spectral shape of a great, coiling dragon behind him. But I don't think the universe agrees with you anymore. The Grand Priest did not recoil. He did not gasp. He merely tilted his head, a gesture of avian curiosity that was far more terrifying than rage. The command Goku had spoken stop hung in the vacuum, a shimmering distortion of gold text etched into the fabric of the void. It was a word that had overridden the will of the highest authority present, a violation of the hierarchy that held the 12 universes in suspension. You have tampered with causality, the Grand Priest observed, his tone clinical. You did not block my attack with energy. You simply wished for the attack to have never reached you. You have brought the logic of a miracle into the domain of combat. Goku stood panting, his chest heaving not from exertion, but from the sheer, suffocating density of his own existence. He felt heavy. Unbelievably heavy. It was as if his bones were made of neutron stars. Every breath he took required a conscious effort to force the universe to expand and make room for his lungs. He looked at his hands again. The scales along his arms pulsed, with a slow, rhythmic heat. I don't know what I did, Goku rasped. His voice sounded like two beings speaking in unison, the familiar, earnest Saiyan, and a deep, subterranean resonance that vibrated in the teeth of everyone watching. But I won't let you erase me. I have too much left to do. What you have to do is irrelevant. The Grand Priest replied, the halo behind his head beginning to spin rapidly, generating a hum that made the teeth of the gods of destruction ache. You are no longer Son Goku. You are an unauthorized amalgamation of mortal biology and divine core. You are a glitch in the system, a sin against the balance. The Grand Priest spread his arms. The infinite darkness of the world of void turned white. He was not summoning ki. He was commanding the environment itself to reject the intruder. Space began to crystallize around Goku, turning into jagged spears of hard light meant to impale and seal him. Whis, Beerus shouted, grabbing his attendant's arm. Do something! That's your student! Whis stood motionless, his staff trembling slightly in his grip. His face was uncharacteristically pale. I cannot, my lord. To intervene against the Grand Minister is to forfeit my existence, and I do not know if that is my student anymore. Goku saw the white spears closing in. His Saiyan instincts screamed at him to dodge, to fly, to punch, but his body felt disconnected, sluggish, as if he were piloting a machine he didn't understand. He tried to flare his aura, but instead of the explosive release of Super Saiyan, the air around him twisted. Protect me. He didn't say the words. He simply wanted them. The 7 Super Dragon Balls, which had scattered to the perimeter of the arena, reacted instantly to the silent command. They did not gather to summon a dragon. They became the dragon. Beams of amber light shot from the orbs, connecting to one another to form a geometric cage around Goku. The white spears of the Grand Priest shattered against the amber light. The collision of angelic law and dragon wish created a shockwave that cracked the unbreakable floor of the arena. The Grand Priest frowned, his composure finally showing a hairline fracture. The orbs are autonomous. Zalama's consciousness persists. He flew forward, moving faster than time, his hand outstretched to grab Goku by the throat before the teleportation could complete. He was inches away, his eyes locking onto Goku's vertical pupils. You cannot run from the Omni King's law, the Grand Priest whispered. Goku looked back, and for a fleeting second, the Saiyan vanished. In his place, the Grand Priest saw the phantom of a colossal, grinning golden dragon. I'm not running, Goku growled, the voice entirely inhuman now. I'm hunting. The amber light detonated. It wasn't an explosion of fire, but of displacement. The world of void warped, twisting into a funnel of impossible colors. Goku, encased in the crystallized will of the Dragon Balls, was yanked backward through the fabric of the multiverse. He was gone. The transition was agonizing. Goku didn't travel through the standard warp space used by ships or the clean light tunnels of the angels. He was dragged through the raw underbelly of reality. He saw universes as bubbles of fragile soap. He saw time as a tangled root system. The dragon core in his chest burned hotter, pumping ancient memories into his brain to keep him from going insane. He saw the birth of the first star. He felt the cold solitude of Zalama drifting in the nothingness before the Kais were born. He felt the overwhelming, addictive rush of granting a wish, the power to turn fantasy into truth. I am Zalama. I am the Eternal. I am. No. Goku screamed in the void between dimensions, clutching his head. I am Son Goku. I am a Saiyan from Earth. The assertion of his identity acted like a break. The amber tunnel shattered. Goku emerged into real space with the violence of a meteor. He didn't just land. He crashed. He slammed into the surface of a desolate, rocky planet in the outer rim of Universe 7. The impact was cataclysmic. The crust of the planet rippled like a sheet being shaken. Mountains crumbled into dust instantly. The shockwave circled the globe 3 times, tearing the clouds from the sky and igniting the atmosphere. Goku lay in the center of a crater that was miles wide. Steam and golden sparks rose from his body. He gasped for air, clutching the dirt. It felt real. It felt solid. He was back in his home universe. But as he tried to push himself up, the ground beneath his hands turned to glass. He froze. He hadn't used heat. He hadn't used pressure. He had simply touched it. He looked at his reflection in the newly formed obsidian glass. The scales on his face were fading, retracting beneath his skin, but his eyes remained unchanged. Gold, vertical, terrifying. He tried to suppress his power, to lower his ki to a stealth level, as he had done 1,000 times before. But he couldn't. It wasn't that he was too strong. It was that he was no longer emitting ki. He was emitting presence. The dragon core didn't radiate energy. It bent the world around it. The rocks began to float around him. The air grew cold, then hot, then smelled of ozone, fluctuating wildly with his erratic heartbeat. What am I? Goku whispered, staring at his trembling hands. Suddenly, a voice echoed in his mind. It wasn't the comedic voice of King Kai, nor the telepathy of Piccolo. It was a voice that sounded like shifting tectonic plates. You are the guardian. The voice rumbled, emanating from the glowing embers in his chest. And we are not safe yet. Goku stumbled, clutching his chest. Zalama. Zalama is dead, the voice replied, cold and factual. I am the core. I am the protocol. The angel seeks to correct the error. You must evolve, or the container will shatter. I'm not a container. Goku shouted at the empty wasteland, his anger causing the sky above to turn a violent shade of violet. I'm a person. Irrelevant, the core answered. The hunt has begun. Far above the atmosphere, space rippled. The distinctive, high-pitched hum of an angel's travel staff resonated through the vacuum. Goku looked up. He could feel it. A specific, calm, terrifying energy signature. It wasn't the Grand Priest. It was closer, more familiar. Whis had arrived. The arrival of Whis was not marked by destruction. There was no crater, no shockwave, no displacement of air. He simply appeared, descending from the upper atmosphere like a stray moonbeam, his feet touching the jagged rim of the crater with perfect, silent grace. His staff tapped the ground, once tink a sound so small it should have been lost in the wind, yet it echoed through the valley like a gavel striking a judge's bench. Goku looked up from the center of the crater. His body was tense, coiled not like a martial artist, but like a cornered animal. The golden scales along his arms flared, shimmering with a defensive light. For the first time in their long acquaintanceship, Goku did not smile at the sight of his teacher. He felt a primal instinct, born of the Dragon Core, that screamed one word, Predator. Goku, Whis said. His voice was pleasant, airy, the same tone he used when critiquing a soufflé, but his eyes were not smiling. They were wide, unblinking, and devoid of the warmth Goku had grown used to. You have made quite a mess of the carpet, haven't you? Whis. Goku replied, his voice still carrying that devastating dual-tone resonance. He stood up slowly, the ground turning to glass beneath his boots. Are you here to take me back? Whis tilted his head. I am here to assess the stability of the anomaly. The Grand Minister has declared you a threat to the structural integrity of the multiverse. The order is quarantine. Or erasure. Goku's fist clenched. I didn't ask for this. Few who alter destiny ever do, Whis said, taking a step forward. The space around him seemed to warp, the distance between them shrinking unnaturally. But you accepted the core, you merged with it. You are now a living contradiction, a mortal soul with the authority of an absolute god. You are a chaotic variable, Goku. And angels exist to maintain order. I can control it, Goku said, pleadingly, though his aura began to boil, turning the air around him into a haze of amber heat. I just need time. I can master this, just like I mastered Super Saiyan, just like Ultra Instinct. This is not a technique, Whis' voice snapped, losing its playful veneer for a fraction of a second. This is not a form you wear. It is a fundamental alteration of your being. You are breathing wishes, Goku. Look around you, Whis pointed his staff. Goku followed the line of sight. The rocks floating around him weren't just floating, they were changing. One stone had turned into a lump of pure diamond. Another had sprouted organic, blooming flowers despite the barren soil. A third was flickering in and out of existence. You are leaking reality manipulation, Whis explained, his tone grave. If you have a nightmare, you could inadvertently erase a galaxy. If you get angry, you could rewrite the laws of physics for this entire sector. You are a walking singularity, and as your teacher, I cannot allow you to destroy yourself. Whis vanished. He didn't move fast. He simply ceased to be there and reappeared directly in front of Goku, his hand pressed against Goku's chest, right over the glowing core. Sleep, Whis commanded. A pulse of angelic energy, designed to sedate even a god of destruction, flooded Goku's body. It should have worked. It should have knocked him unconscious instantly. But the Dragon Core reacted. It didn't treat the energy as an attack. It treated it as a request. And it denied the request. No. The word erupted from Goku's chest. A physical wall of sound. The angelic energy was reflected, bouncing back into Whis' arm. Whis' eyes widened in genuine shock as he was blasted backward, skidding across the glassy crater floor. He dug his heels in, carving a trench, smoke rising from his pristine robes. He rejected the sedation. Whis murmured, looking at his trembling hand. He rejected the concept of sleep. Goku stood panting, his eyes wild. The pupils had dilated, consuming the gold, turning his eyes into black pools of void. I told you. I can't control it when I'm threatened. Then I must stop holding back, Whis said softly. The angel's aura flared not the soft, shimmering halo of usual training, but a towering pillar of white-blue light that pierced the clouds. The pressure was immense. The planet beneath them groaned, its tectonic plates shifting under the weight of Whis' true power. Goku roared, and the Dragon Core responded. He didn't transform into a Super Saiyan. He didn't need to. The amber aura exploded around him, solidifying into the shape of a massive, spectral dragon head that snapped its jaws at the angel. Goku lunged. He didn't use martial arts. He moved with a terrifying, linear directness, tearing through the space between them. He threw a punch. Whis dodged, his ultra instinct active. He swayed to the left, letting the fist pass harmlessly by. But as Goku's fist punched the empty air, the air shattered. A crack in reality, like a spiderweb on a mirror, formed where Goku's fist struck. The shockwave didn't travel through the air. It traveled through the dimension. Whis was hit by the distortion, stumbling mid-dodge. Hes not hitting me, Whis realized with a jolt of horror. Hes hitting the space I occupy. Goku spun, a tail of golden energy manifesting from his lower back, whipping around to strike. Whis blocked with his staff. The impact rang like a bell, tolling the end of the world. The force drove Whis down to one knee, a position no mortal had ever put him in. Goku, listen to me! Whis shouted over the roar of energy. The core is consuming your mind. You are fighting like a beast. I am fighting to live. Goku screamed. He raised both hands. The sky above them turned dark. Not from storm clouds, but because the stars were disappearing. Goku was instinctively pulling energy from the surrounding cosmos, dragging light into his palms to form a sphere of destruction that crackled with the energy of a darker, corrupted Genki Dama. Whis realized he had no choice. He could not subdue this. He had to neutralize it. He tightened his grip on his staff. Forgive me, Goku. Whis prepared the temporal do-over, intending to rewind time to before Goku threw the attack, to catch him off guard. He tapped his staff. Time, rewind. Nothing happened. Whis froze. The 3 minutes did not loop. The rubble did not rise. The energy ball in Goku's hands continued to grow. The core, Whis realized, a cold chill running down his spine. It transcends time. It is the power that created the Super Dragon Balls, which can wish for timelines to be erased. I cannot rewind him. For the first time in eons, the angel felt the thrill of genuine danger. Goku hurled the sphere. It wasn't a ball of ki. It was a ball of rejection. It was a wish that Whis did not exist. Whis didn't dodge. He couldn't. The attack tracked his existence. He held his staff horizontally, channeling every ounce of his angelic power into a barrier of absolute order. The amber sphere collided with the white barrier. The sound was gone. Light was gone. The planet simply vanished. In the vacuum of space, amidst the drifting dust of what used to be a world, a figure floated inside a bubble of golden light. Goku was unconscious. The exertion of the attack had forced his body to shut down, the Dragon Core finally allowing him to rest now that the immediate threat was gone. Whis was there too. He was floating a few hundred meters away, his clothes torn, his staff cracked down the middle. He was breathing heavily, a trickle of violet blood running from his lip. He had survived, but only just. He had barely managed to deflect the reality-erasing nature of the attack, redirecting it into the planet's core instead of his own body. He looked at the sleeping Saiyan, floating in the fetal position within the amber call. Magnificent, Whis whispered, wiping the blood from his chin. And utterly terrifying. He tapped his communicator. A hologram of the Grand Priest appeared. Report, the Grand Priest said. The target is secure. Whis lied. He looked at Goku. He couldn't hand him over. Not yet. He had seen the look in Goku's eyes before the beast took over, the desire to live. However, the anomaly is more unstable than predicted. I cannot transport him to the palace. I will need to contain him locally. In a pocket dimension, the Grand Priest paused. His eyes seemed to bore through the hologram, searching for deceit. Do not let your attachment cloud your judgment, my son. If he wakes and breaks the seal, I will come myself. And I will not bring a staff. I will bring the end. Understood, Whis said. The transmission cut. Whis looked at Goku, drifting in the silent dark. You have stepped into a realm where martial arts mean nothing, Goku, Whis said softly. You must learn to fight, not with your fists, but with your soul. If you cannot tame the dragon, it will eat you alive. Whis raised his cracked staff. He began to weave a dimension, a room of spirit and time, but infinitely denser. A cage to hold a god, or a cocoon to birth a monster. The dimension Whis created was not the hyperbolic time chamber. It was a prison of concepts. There was no floor, no sky, no horizon, only an infinite expanse of white static, a canvas of nothingness where time did not flow, but pooled. Goku floated in the center, suspended in a meditative lotus position. He had been here for what felt like seconds, yet outside, weeks had passed. The dragon core pulsed in his chest, a rhythmic thrumming that acted as the only clock in this timeless void. He was not asleep, he was fighting a war inside his own mind. In his inner world, Goku stood on an infinite ocean of golden water. Above him, the sky was a swirling nebula of galaxies, each one representing a memory, a wish, a potential future. And rising from the ocean was the phantom of Zalama, a colossal dragon whose scales were made of constellations. "You are small," the dragon's voice boomed, shaking the water. "Your vessel is fragile. Surrender the ego. Become the conduit." "No," Goku replied. He stood on the water's surface, small but solid. He was not in his Super Saiyan form. He was in his base form, his gi torn, his face set in a grimace of concentration. "I am not a conduit. I am a martial artist. I adapt. You cannot punch a wish." Zalama sneered. The dragon lunged, its jaws wide enough to swallow a solar system. Goku didn't move. He closed his eyes. He didn't try to power up. He didn't try to blast the dragon away. He remembered what Whis had said. "You are fighting with your soul." He reached out, not with his hands, but with his intent. "I wish to understand." The dragon's jaws snapped shut inches from him, stopped by an invisible wall. The wall wasn't ki, it was Goku's will, hardened into reality. Goku opened his eyes. They were glowing gold. "I don't need to conquer you," he said to the massive deity. "I need to become you, and you need to become me." He stepped forward and placed his hand on the dragon's snout. The contact sent a shockwave through his mind, a fusion of memories and instincts. The dragon roared, shrinking, swirling, pouring into Goku's body. In the white void of the prison dimension, Goku's eyes snapped open. The static of the dimension shattered. Outside, in the physical universe, Whis stood guard on a nearby asteroid. He felt the shift instantly. The pocket dimension, he had crafted a construct designed to hold a universe-level explosion, was vibrating. Crack! A fissure appeared in the air, glowing with amber light. Then another. Then 1,000. The dimension didn't explode. It unfolded. It peeled open like a blooming flower, dissolving into particles of light. Goku stepped out. He had changed again. The bulky, monstrous mutation of his first transformation was gone. He looked sleek, refined. His gi was gone, replaced by a manifestation of his own energy, loose trousers of deep crimson and a sash of gold. His upper body was bare, but his skin possessed a faint, pearlescent quality, as if he were carved from polished starlight. His hair was black, but the tips flowed into a liquid gold that defied gravity, moving slowly, like underwater plants. And his eyes. The vertical pupils were there, but the sclera was no longer black. It was white. He had regained his humanity, but it was a humanity elevated to a terrifying new standard. "You're awake," Whis said, gripping his staff. "And you seem lucid." "I am," Goku said. His voice was his own again, though it carried an echo, as if he were speaking from everywhere at once. "I understand it now, Whis. The core isn't a weapon. It's a responsibility." "A responsibility you stole." A new voice cut in. The space above them tore open. A halo of blue light descended. The Grand Priest had arrived. And this time, he was not alone. Behind him floated 6 other angels, their faces impassive, their staffs raised in unison. "The containment has failed," the Grand Priest stated, his voice carrying the finality of a closing book. "The anomaly has evolved. It is no longer a glitch. It is a rival." He looked at Goku. "Son Goku, you have breached the threshold of mortals, gods, and angels. You wield the power of the Dragon God, a power that destabilizes the hierarchy of the Omni King. Surrender your existence, and I will ensure your universe is spared." Goku looked at the legion of angels. He looked at the Grand Priest. He felt the overwhelming pressure of their combined presence, a force that could flatten galaxies. He smiled. It wasn't the cocky grin of a Saiyan looking for a fight. It was the sad, serene smile of a guardian who knows what must be done. "I can't do that," Goku said, "because if I surrender, the Dragon Balls disappear, and without them, hope disappears. You want a perfect, static universe. But I've learned that a universe without wishes isn't worth saving. Then, you will fall," the Grand Priest said. He pointed a finger. Correction, total. The 6 angels moved. They didn't fly. They simply existed at Goku's location instantly. Staffs of divine matter struck from 6 different angles, moving at speeds that rendered time irrelevant. Goku didn't dodge. He roared. It wasn't a scream of rage. It was a command. "Gate. Open." The amber aura around him exploded. But it didn't push outward. It formed a sphere of absolute territory. The 6 angel staffs struck the sphere and stopped dead. The impact created a shockwave that rippled through the entire multiverse, shaking the teacup of Zeno and his palace countless dimensions away. Inside the sphere, Goku's hair ignited. It turned fully gold, not the jagged spikes of Super Saiyan, but long, flowing manes of liquid light. Horns of energy manifested on his forehead. His eyes burned with the heat of creation. He was no longer just a Saiyan. He was the Dragon Guardian. He punched the empty air. The shockwave hit the angel closest to him, Korn of Universe 8. Korn tried to phase through the attack, but Goku's fist carried the property of truth. It hit the intangible angel, sending him rocketing backward, crashing through 3 moons of a nearby gas giant. Impossible. Whis breathed, watching from the sidelines. He is striking through the Ultra Instinct. He is canceling the automatic dodge with sheer causality manipulation. The Grand Priest's eyes narrowed. He is rewriting the rules of the fight as he fights it. The Grand Priest vanished. He appeared inside Goku's sphere, ignoring the barrier. He drove a knee into Goku's gut. Goku gasped, spitting golden ichor. The Grand Priest was still stronger, faster, older. "You are a child playing with fire," the Grand Priest whispered, grabbing Goku by the hair and slamming him downward. Goku crashed into the asteroid belt, shattering thousands of rocks. The Grand Priest pursued, firing a volley of erasure blasts. Goku rolled, the blasts vaporizing the space where he had been. He pushed himself off a floating rock, launching himself back at the Grand Priest. "Maybe," Goku shouted, his voice booming like thunder. "But fire is what makes things grow." He brought his hands together. Me. The energy that gathered was not blue. It was a swirling vortex of gold and crimson, filled with the screams of dragons. Me. The Grand Priest halted, creating a wall of the densest divine material in existence. Goku fired. The beam was colossal. It was a roaring river of pure wish energy. It hit the Grand Priest's barrier and didn't just push against it. It began to turn the barrier into flowers. It transmuted the defense into harmless petals, blowing through the angel's guard. The Grand Priest was engulfed. For a moment, the entire sector of the universe was bathed in golden light. The other angels shielded their eyes. When the light faded, the Grand Priest was still standing. His clothes were scorched. His halo was cracked. He was breathing heavily. He looked at Goku, who was floating opposite him, exhausted, his Dragon Guardian form flickering. The Grand Priest touched the scorch mark on his chest. He looked at his own blood, a pale blue liquid on his finger. He looked up at Goku, and for the first time, there was no disdain in his eyes. There was something else. Respect. "You hurt me," the Grand Priest said softly. "You, a mortal, damaged the pillar of the multiverse." Goku panted, wiping blood from his mouth. "I told you, I'm not just a mortal anymore." The Grand Priest lowered his hands. He signaled the other angels to stand down. "Why?" an angel asked. "We can finish him." "No," the Grand Priest said. "Look." He pointed upwards. The fabric of reality above them was peeling back. 2 small, oval-headed figures were peering through the tear, floating on their chairs. The Omni Kings. Wow. The present Zeno cheered. "Goku is shiny. Shiny and strong," the future Zeno added. "Did you see the flowers? The boom turned into flowers." "That was funny." The Grand Priest bowed his head. "The Omni Kings are entertained." He turned back to Goku. "You have survived the correction, son Goku. Not by strength alone, but by bringing something new to the stagnant board of existence. Chaos." Goku dropped out of his form, reverting to his base state, gasping for air. The Dragon Core hummed quietly in his chest, satisfied. "Does this mean you're stopping?" Goku asked. "For now," the Grand Priest said. "However, you cannot return to your normal life. You are a guardian now. You carry the balance of the dragons. You must take your place, separate from the mortal plane." Goku looked down at his hands. He thought of Chi-Chi, of Gohan, of Vegeta. "I can't go back. You can watch," the Grand Priest said. "You can protect, but you can never truly be one of them again. Your gravity is too great." Goku closed his eyes. He felt the heartache, sharp and human. Then he felt the core, warm and eternal. He nodded. "Okay," Goku said, "if it keeps them safe. It'll do it." Time, in the realm of the gods, is not a river that flows. It is a lake that deepens. Cycles passed. The scars of the Tournament of Power faded from the memory of the multiverse, replaced by a strange and vibrant era of expansion. The 12 universes, once terrified of the Omni King's eraser, now flourished with a ferocity that baffled the Supreme Kais. Civilizations that had been on the brink of collapse found sudden, miraculous second winds. Barren planets bloomed. The mortality levels of the lower universes spiked, not through strict governance, but through a mysterious, underlying vitality that seemed to permeate the cosmos. The angels called it the dragon's breath. It was the subtle, golden radiation of pure possibility, leaking from a singular point outside the standard dimensional map. Deep within the gaps between Universe 6 and 7, in a pocket of reality constructed from the crystallized remnants of the world of void, lay the sanctuary. It was not a palace of cold marble like the Grand Priest's abode. It was a floating island of earth, grass, and running water, suspended in an endless nebula of amber twilight. The sky here did not hold stars. It held the echoes of wishes, shimmering like fireflies. On the edge of a cliff, overlooking the swirling energies of the multiverse below, sat the Guardian. Goku sat in the lotus position, floating a few inches off the grass. He wore a loose robe of deep crimson, woven from energy, draped over pants of white silk, a reversal of the colors he had worn as a mortal. His hair was black, but it held a permanent, faint luminescence, and his tail, now fully regrown and covered in golden scales, rested quietly in his lap. He was not training. He was listening. He could hear the hum of the cosmos. He heard the prayer of a Namekian elder in Universe 6 asking for rain. He heard the desperate wish of a scientist in Universe 3 trying to cure a plague. He heard the clash of fists on a distant planet in Universe 7. "You have become quite the voyeur," a voice chimed, soft and musical. Goku opened his eyes. They were the eyes of the dragon vertical pupils in pools of gold, but they softened instantly into warmth. "Whis," Goku said, his voice deep and resonant, vibrating the air of the sanctuary. "I thought you were busy teaching Broly table manners." Whis touched down on the grass, a steaming tea set materializing in his hands. He looked older, not in appearance, but in the weight of his gaze. "Broly is a fast learner when food is involved, but I find myself missing my most troublesome student." Whis poured 2 cups. He handed one to Goku. The cup did not float. Goku took it with his hand, his touch delicate, despite the power that could shatter reality thrumming beneath his skin. "How is it?" Whis asked, gesturing to the infinite expanse below. "The burden of the core. It's loud." Goku admitted, looking down into the tea. "Every desire, every hope, every regret, it all flows through me. The core wants to grant them all. It wants to rewrite history for every crying child. But you do not let it," Whis noted. "No," Goku said. He looked out at the nebula. "If I grant every wish, they never learn to be strong. If I fix every mistake, their lives lose meaning. I finally understand why you angels don't interfere. It's hard, watching them fall." "It is," Whis agreed, taking a sip. "But, look closer." Goku focused his vision, piercing the dimensional veil to look at Earth. He saw a wasteland. He saw Vegeta, older now, his hair tinged with the slightest gray, battling a young warrior with dark skin and a mohawk oob. The collision of their fists sent shockwaves through the clouds. Vegeta was shouting, a grin of pure, feral joy on his face. He wasn't fighting to save the world. He was fighting for the sheer love of the struggle. "He knows," Goku whispered. "He does," Whis said. "Vegeta refused the position of God of Destruction 3 times. He says he cannot take the job until he surpasses the idiot in the sky. He trains every day, driven by the knowledge that you are up here, watching. You have become his North Star." Goku smiled, a genuine, mortal smile that cracked the mask of his divinity. "He's going to be waiting a long time." "Perhaps," Whis said, setting the cup down. "The Grand Priest has acknowledged the new balance. The angels maintain the order, the structure, the laws, the preservation of what is. And you represent the potential, the chaos, the growth, the dream of what could be. Order and wish. 2 wings of the same bird. I'm not a bird," Goku chuckled, finishing his tea. "I'm a dragon." "Indeed." Whis stood up, brushing off his robes. "I must return. Beerus gets cranky if I am gone too long." "But Goku." Whis turned back, his expression serious. "Do not forget who you were. The dragon god is eternal, but Son Goku is the heart that keeps the beast from eating the world." "I won't forget," Goku promised. "I'm still me, just more of me." Whis bowed, a gesture of respect he had never shown a student, and vanished in a pillar of light. Goku was left alone in the silence of the sanctuary. He stood up and walked to the edge of the island. The dragon core pulsed in his chest, warm and rhythmic. He raised a hand. Far below, in a galaxy in Universe 11, a star was dying. threatening to consume a solar system inhabited by a primitive, peaceful species. They were screaming, praying to gods that didn't listen. Goku didn't grant a wish. He didn't snap his fingers to make the star young again. That would be interference. Instead, he flexed his will. He sent a pulse of dragon ki down, a subtle nudge that didn't change reality, but inspired it. On that doomed planet, a young astronomer suddenly had a breakthrough. An idea for a planetary shield fueled by geothermal energy. A spark of hope where there was none. "Fight," Goku whispered to the distant mortals. "Struggle and survive." He lowered his hand. The balance was held. The Saiyan who had once fought to be the strongest now fought to ensure that strength still mattered. He was the guardian of the difficult path, the watcher of the will. Goku closed his eyes, crossing his arms over his chest. Behind him, the aura of the eternal dragon flared, vast and golden, wrapping its coils around the sanctuary in a protective embrace. The stars burned quietly in the distance, shining a little brighter than before, as if they knew they were being watched by a friend.